Welcome to Linux Saloon, a place to discuss tech, open source, and where Linux is always on tap. Hopefully my mic is not too hot, because it looks like it might be. I'm going to have to turn this thing down just a whisker. If I get all excited, it's going to peak. Anyway, we talk about all kinds of fun Linuxy and open sourcey things like distributions, Linux distributions, or even BSD. We did a few weeks ago, we did BSD. We talk about desktop environments or applications. We also chat about any variety of topics from the news, anything that's Linux tech and open source related is on the table for discussion. I'm Nate, Linux fitness and vintage tech enthusiast with an almost healthy obsession with the Framework Corporation. With me today, I've got Jason Starbuck, Jinda, Ben, and my little can of bubbly. How is everybody today? Fantastic. So, on the table for, I should say on the docket for today, we're going to be talking about Linux Mint 22. So, a lot of people are very excited about this. We have a straw poll, so if you have not done so yet, please be sure to do the straw poll so that you can get your vote in there about Linux Mint and how your exploration went. And then we'll do a community free pour with Ben on StormOS, assuming he doesn't fall asleep on me ahead of time, because he does do that. He does think I'm a very boring feller.
Oh,
he's told me this on
I'm not going to fall asleep on you, man.
4 or 5 dozen occasions he's told me this. So,
oh, God. Well, I'm energetic tonight.
Fantastic. So, but first, we're doing Linux and tech. So this week I was out of town. I went to Texas again to do some hardware installation in the server room there, but not working on my equipment. I'm working on the equipment on the OT side, as they call it. So I think the operational technology. Jinda, I think that's what it's called, right? OT is the operational technology. Sure.
Yeah, I think so.
In most cases, yes.
So this is the part of the network that's cut off to the internet. There is no access. These machines cannot talk outside of it. They're isolated, so that you can't have a bad actor get in there and do nasty things. I'm sure there's still a way to do it, but it's a very tortured path, and they're gonna work very hard for that. So, anyway, so what was needed is essentially there are 3 servers and 1 storage array, and basically the storage array is already maxed out, so I need to add another storage array. So I ordered one, and weirdly enough, okay, so just on full disclosure. When it comes to enterprise-grade equipment, so like these massive servers and everything else, that's not my strong suit. But I'm always willing to learn and talk to people and get advice and everything else. So what I ended up, this stand did not come with an instruction manual, a quick setup guide at all. So no surprise there. I'm sure Eric would have known what to do and probably could have gotten it done in 20 minutes as opposed to my 6 hours of getting it set up. I'm just going to assume you'd have done better than me, Eric.
It just means you have a very thorough understanding of everything right now. See? That's
So the next time you do it, it'll be 20 minutes.
I like the way I like your spin, Eric. I like your spin.
corporate man right here.
That's right. So what ended up, I made it way more complicated than I thought. I thought I needed something that was Dell specific, and so I was like looking for like their system and everything else. What it boiled down to is I just needed a Linux distribution on there that provided an NFS share. That was it. That's all I needed to do. That was it. And so I spent a lot of extra time looking for something I didn't need to look for. So, of course, what do you think I installed on there?
I'm going to say Mint.
Except without the tail. What happened to the tail? So I installed OpenSUSE Leap on there. I figured that'd be a safe way to go. It's pretty straightforward. And so I installed it, set up the NFS share, which is stuff I've been doing anyway for myself. So that was all pretty easy to do. And then getting all the permissions right, so VMware could utilize that as a data store. That was another small step. And then got everything going, and then installed. I want to say it's 7 different Windows Server 2022 virtual machines. But initially, I didn't I installed a few of them incorrectly because the company that's coming to do this work, they want the standard edition, or desktop edition, not the non-desktop edition, I guess. So, anyway, so I got those set up. Took a while to do. Got it all done. I learned a lot this week. Probably more in this 1 week than I think I probably learned in a while. And so it was a lot of fun understanding how the technology works. Other issues too, like the on the switch side, I had to put it on the right VLAN too, so I had to actually select that on the Cisco switch there. So there's all these different things that are tripping me up, and the engineer's like, "Oh yeah, you have to got to change that right here, and here's how you do that." And so it was just a lot of good times. So anyway, very productive week. Got that done, and then I reconfigured a couple of Raspberry Pis, which were just being stupid. So I just nuked and paved them. So, but anyway, that was my week. Pretty busy. A little bit nerve wracking because the company is like purchased this software that's in the 6-figure range, and basically it was waiting on me to do all this so that we could start the process. And so lots of pressure. But anyway, it's done. And
Nice.
and I'm happy. I probably could have done it better though. There's after I got it done, I'm like, you know what? If I had maybe done it a different way. Oh, look at this.
Hey, now.
Hey, kitty.
Oh,
She doesn't
man,
do
we got
this
cat
normally.
competitions.
All right.
Oh yeah.
This is Murder Kitty. She goes and she murders different animals and feeds it to my chickens. So she's a very wonderful cat. So I will not put a bell around her neck. She enjoys
never
this.
put a bell on a cat.
That's a terrible thing to do. So I appreciate her violence. So
Murder
Anyway.
kitty.
that's not her
mittens.
actual name. Murder Mittens. I call her June.
That's what they do so well.
Yeah, she's got all her claws. She likes to let me know. Anyway, yes, I'm a cat lady, just like the rest of you. So yeah, good times. So I just got home this morning. Well, yeah, about noon today. So I'm a little bit tired, but I'm fine. I won't fall asleep during the show. I won't pull a Ben.
Okay, good. 5-hour stream then. Let's do it.
No, I don't think so. My name is not Dave.
He's in chat though.
Is he in chat?
Yes, he is.
Oh, Dave. Yeah, no, I can't do Dave streams. I don't have that kind of endurance. I'm not young like you. Nowhere near as young as you are.
Dave Young.
Well, I mean, the way he can do these things, it's got to be.
Yeah. Well, he
Does anybody
does
else
step
have
away
any
from time to time.
Yeah. Did you fix your wall? It looks like you fixed your wall.
No, it's still there. It's just the lighting. It's right there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe you fixed your wall.
No, we're trying to figure out what we could do because we're not going to just repaint it and then fix it up and paint it whatever and then have to just go murder mittens on it again. So we're trying to figure out. 'Cause I saw these things online that you can put on your wall. They're like cat scratchy things. So you can put them on the wall in places. Consider one of those. It's like a light sticker, but I'm afraid she's just gonna rip through that thing anyway.
I was thinking about getting one of those little I don't have a problem with my cat scratching anything. At least, except in the morning, if I shut the door to the bathroom, she will let me know that she wants to come in. So I do hear her. She doesn't like scratch it outright, but she does just a little bit of the. No, she'll actually on the door itself. She'll like pat the door.
Oh, my cats like to reach under and shake it.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
They reach under and grab it and shake the door. Like, hey, let me in. You'll see like 3 different colored paws, mind you.
Yeah.
Hey,
'Cause I don't have that
How you doing,
gap.
bud?
But yeah, I don't get back to the kitty discussion. So anybody else have a productive week this week? Doing anything exciting? Adam probably solved the world's problems in the flavor of silver blue, I'm sure.
Yeah, nah. I did purchase a Linux system this week, though.
Really?
Yeah, it does run Linux.
What is this system?
It's a BMW.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
it,
Yeah.
it does run Linux.
Can't hide
Yes, it
money.
does.
Those electric buses or something?
What was that?
Did you get one of those new electric buses?
That's a Volkswagen.
Oh, Volkswagen. I'm sorry. I thought you said.
It's okay.
It's
Full charge
German.
for effort.
They all look the same.
Yeah, they're both German.
But yeah,
Oh, wow.
I was actually thought it was interesting to learn that the infotainment system is actually based on Linux.
Here's a fun fact. Their virtualization system that they use, instead of VMware, they use SUSE Rancher, or SUSE Rancher Prime.
For BMW?
BMW does, yeah.
Neat.
Yeah.
It's not often
See
you see
that?
that.
Secretly, OpenSUSE is the reason that German cars are so good.
No, because of SUSE, not OpenSUSE.
That's
But I
a-
guess maybe
that's
there's
a
trickle.
stretch.
Oh,
Sure.
sorry. You're right, SUSE. Can't make that mistake. Sorry, SUSE.
Yeah.
See, this is why they want to change the name.
You know, I don't want to. If you notice, I when I did the intro, I didn't say my normal line because I'm a little annoyed by the whole thing. I don't know who's angry, wants to take their toys and go home on the SUSE side. I don't know who's being the brat on the OpenSUSE side, but whatever.
They're not sharing. Is that what you're saying?
Nate's like, me and Susan aren't talking.
Our relationship is strained right now. Actually, as I'm in talks with SUSE for using them for virtualization as well at our plant.
Like
So
catty schoolgirls arguing.
Michael Whalen Jr. says GM uses Linux in their sys as well. So
I know NASA.
It's a
uses
very
one.
responsive system, though. It is incredibly responsive. So,
So-
kudos to them. They made a good choice.
So I do know that the infotainment system for the back, what runs the video player and the games and everything, that runs Linux. The reason I know this is because it does crash from time to time, and I can see the penguin kind of in a stretched format. So
That's awesome. Not the
Good job.
crashing part.
good job, Chrysler. Nicely done.
Stellantis.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, excellent.
Yeah, it's a nice car, and I just
Is
thought
it-
it was neat.
Is it a two-seater, or two-door, four-door, like a minivan?
Two-door. It's a
Two-door?
2024 230i X-Drive.
Well, that sounds
So it's
expensive.
all-wheel drive, 2 Series. Yeah.
230i, what?
X-Drive, the all-wheel drive. This is what they call their all-wheel drive models.
Okay.
I got it in red. I can send you a picture, but yeah.
In red. That's the first thing
Yeah.
that came up on the DuckDuckGo image search. That's a pretty rad-looking car right there.
Yeah.
Ooh,
it
can't
moves,
hide money.
for sure.
Yeah, looks like it would. Not that it matters, because you don't buy a car like this for its fuel economy, but I'm curious.
30 miles a gallon is what I'm averaging.
Wow. That's not bad. For
Yeah. It's a 2-liter turbo. 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo.
got it.
I think it's around 280 horsepower.
It kind of reminds me of like that Pontiac, like from like 20 years ago ish. The Pontiac, is it Soul or whatever Jazz was in Transformers? Transformers?
The Fiero?
No.
No, it's
The
a
Transformers 2007 movie.
It's a Pontiac Solstice and a
Solstice?
Solstice, yeah, there we go.
yeah, and what was the other
Oh.
one? A Sky, right? Saturn
Oh,
Sky.
Saturn, yeah. No, definitely not that. Yeah.
The Solstice was a pretty cool looking car.
Most certainly not that.
No, but I'm just saying it kind of has that same, with the longer nose, some of the
Yeah.
muscle car attributes of it. I didn't mean to besmirch your BMW. I apologize
no,
for
just
putting
like
Pontiac
those-
in there.
More specifically, it's an indictment of how terrible those cars were.
The Solstice.
It's like
whatever?
the Plymouth Prowler. Everyone's like, look how cool it looks until like you move it, and then
I said the
breaks.
Plymouth Prowler looks pretty cool.
Yeah, as long as it's staying still.
Whatever happened to the Viper? That was a fun car.
Yeah.
Yeah, Stellantis said we can't have nice things, so
So Dave's Vintage Apple Tech says, I have a BMW 320i 1978 110 horsepower.
Ooh,
Is
that'd
that
be
from
fun to drive,
1978?
That's crazy. I had the exact same car when I was like 20. It was my first German car, and unfortunately the wheel wells, because I lived in Pennsylvania at the time and
Oh, so you had
had
no
those
wheel wells.
winters with. So the struts in the rear were integral with the wheel well, and it rusted out, and basically the strut pushed through the wheel well, and like once that happened, like there's no way to ever get it to be, like you could try to fix it, but it would never be like straight and true again.
Yeah.
So it was basically junk at that point. But it was such a cool car,
I like how that car.
like a go-kart.
Yeah, I like the nose of that car a lot. The kind of the slanting forward, the kind of like an aggressive forward point to it. Isn't that kind of what George McFly had after the Marty manipulated the time? Is that the kind of BMW he had?
Oh, yeah. I think you're right.
Or maybe it's just similar. I mean, I don't know if these would survive Michigan winters. But anyway, all right. So, well, very cool. We've got our car talk in, got our server talk in. Just gotta do food talk, and we've checked all 3 of the boxes, I think, for Linux Saloon, right? All right. So, go ahead and move on to the straw poll here. Let me just make a quick little note here. So Eris isn't here. I think he's off hunting Pokemon or something today. But the put together a straw poll. What best describes your experience with Linux Mint 22 Wilma? So if you haven't done the straw poll, knock that out real quick if you care to do so. I'll go ahead and get into the replies first. Said says I really tried to upgrade my 21.3 to do it, to it. It didn't work. It may be a skill issue, which is an issue, but I am patiently waiting for an update of the upgrade tool, so I have the beta installed on another partition and may end up upgrading it and pushing my home to it. I haven't decided which path to go on yet. I didn't do any upgrades, so I couldn't say. Okay, another response. They finally pushed the upgrade path from Mint 21.3 to Mint 22, and other than a few third-party repos causing a few hiccups, it went well. I was worried about the NVIDIA card not working since it's stuck on a legacy driver version and doesn't work with some kernels. LOL. 6.8 seems to be working just fine though. So I didn't see any other responses to that. I can check Twix. Nope. All right, so I guess I'll go ahead and look at the results. Hit the refresh, one more time. Check it out here. All right, so which best describes your experience with Linux Mint? In first place, we got It Is Good with 37% of the votes. And then It's Amazing, Refreshingly New, but the same. In second place with 21%. In third place, didn't have enough time, busy with work, busy with life, busy with real life. That got 17%. In fourth place, at 8%, was It's Okay. Tied for fourth was Other. And also tied for fourth, Tux Penguin. So, yeah, so a three-way tie for fourth. So Tux Penguin got a few votes. All right, so I know that Linux Mint is pretty heavily used. I don't see her in the chat right now, but Anna, she's a Linux Mint user. Got Leo. I think Eric, you probably use Linux Mint a little bit. Yep.
I use it on my desktop. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. And I just used it in a virtual machine and tried doing a bare metal install, but that did fail. But that might be an issue with the computer because the Debian install failed on that one too. OpenSUSE didn't, and GhostBSD didn't, but whatever. So, yeah. What do you think of? Does it seem like you would say it is good, or would you say it's amazing? Where do you rank yourself on that?
Me?
Anybody?
I love Mint. I always have. there's almost nothing I've ever had a problem with, and it's just like easy mode for most things. That's why I like it on my desktop, because and I also like Cinnamon because it's sort of that basic Windows layout that you just it's like muscle memory. You know, you don't
Familiar.
even think about it. It's so easy to use. Yeah, and I really like Nemo as a file manager. I like the X apps, you know, the X editor and the X viewer, image viewer and stuff like that. The core system itself just is it has been for a long time and continues to be with each successive release to just be and I think that's the secret is that they don't change too much too quickly. They, you know, bring people along and add new features. I remember one of the things that I generally will do is set up so that my touchpad will turn off if I have an external mouse plugged in.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I think it was like 21.1 or 21.2 maybe, they added that as a first class feature just in the UI, like in the settings app. And I was like, yep, like, you know, it's things like that that they find, you know, those little refinements, the little things that make life a little bit easier to use the system, and they add them in gradually over time. They add them in a way that they almost never break anything, and it really just I haven't upgraded to 22 yet because I just haven't really had the time or really the reason yet
Mhm.
to do it. I like to wait usually, and like I think a big factor for people upgrading is that they get a 6.8 kernel, and like if you have newer hardware, I think that is a um, you know, a genuine concern for some people. Like having the newer base makes a big difference, whereas to me, like I don't there are definitely some nice features that are part of the release, but the way I use that desktop system is not really, it's not going to make a huge difference for me. So but I will eventually.
So, I think one of the like one of those like these those what we call those what they're quality of life enhancements that I think that they maybe concentrate on a lot of. Yeah, I don't have my mouse or my touchpad automatically turn off when I have a mouse plugged in, but I do have my trackpad touch off when I start typing. But sometimes that's not 100% either.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, and I mean, they're smart enough to have. I mean, Cinnamon I think is a good sort of balance for most people, for a lot of people. But the fact that they have Mate and XFCE as well, for people that have a preference between the three, the fact that all three of them are very similar in terms of how they're configured and look and feel and all of that. And excuse me, it's I mean, it's hard. It's just like that. I don't know the best way to say it. It's the old familiar thing that is hard to dislike. You might get bored with it. You might want to try other things. You might want to use a rolling distro. You might want to have, you know, do something different if you start with it and then sort of move off into doing other things. But it is just that sort of old, reliable, you know what you're going to get.
Mhm.
And I'm never afraid to recommend if someone's like, you know, what's just a super straightforward Linux distro that's going to be easy for someone to use. Like, I think Mint is pretty high on that list.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. So I guess let's get into the distribution exploration then, since I guess we're there. So we do have some rules. I think just want to go over those real quick because I think it's important. So the intent is to talk about the different aspects of the operating system and discuss the experience from using it. I'm sorry, I listened to some country music today, and so I kind of forgot how to read, so I apologize. This is a discussion that by which should be objective and constructive. Non-objective opinions like "this is garbage" is not helpful, but rather if you say things like "I wish I had a specific feature" or "I really need a feature that allows me to do, something," that's benefiting the conversation. The point is to highlight the perspectives, the positives, but not ignore the lowlights of the project. Remember, this is a labor of love for some, so let's not poo-poo on it. So a little bit about Linux Mint 22. It's a significant update that includes some various improvements and new features. So here are some of the highlights. So the Cinnamon Desktop it's known for being a friendly desktop environment. It's been updated with several new features, including improved performance, refreshed look, and enhanced functionality. The software manager updates allows users to filter search results by category or rating, making it easier to find the software they need. I forgot to put a little space here. The update manager had some improvements as well. It can now handle larger updates more efficiently, reducing downtime for users during upgrades. Linux Mint 22 includes improved driver management capabilities, ensuring that graphics drivers are updated correctly and preventing potential issues with system stability as well. And then there's this release features updated kernel, Linux 6.x, to ensure compatibility with modern hardware and provide better performance. So additionally, the release notes do mention there's improved support for newer hardware, enhanced security features, and better integration with other Linux Mint tools. So that's kind of a down and dirty on the updates to it. So is there anything you think that should be highlighted in those updates in there? Because like when I used it, it felt like Linux Mint has felt,
Yep.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
So there's
Yeah, I'm on Team Eric with like when I updated to the latest version. I just basically used it the same way I did use it. So some of the quality of life features that they added and stuff, I didn't really, notice them, so to speak.
mm-hmm. Right. So
Yeah.
on the what? I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I think, again, it's sort of a modernization. They're switching the way that they do their, distributions, their releases, a new point or a new major release. So a 22 in this case, this means it's rebased on the newest LTS.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going from 21 series, which got all the way to 21.3. That was on 2204 the entire time. And so when you get to like 21.3, then you're sort of, you've got an older kernel, you've got older packages, you're sort of in that, the last vestiges of like that LTS before you're switching over. So 22 or 23 or any of the major releases always bring, a slew of underpinning advancements. And it's kind of hard to go through all of the differences between Ubuntu 22.04 and 24.04, but that's where the newer kernel comes in, Pipewire, updating the themes to support GTK4. Like there's just a lot of sort of time has moved on in the last few years, right? And so now you're getting the advancement and the update of all of that.
Yeah.
And then also the same thing with, because Cinnamon is based on GNOME, 40, they're bringing in pieces of GNOME 46 and actually doing their own things with it in terms of like the way they're supporting GTK3 and GTK4. So yeah, a lot of it is just sort of modernization. Like you've just got a new stack, new sort of underpinnings of basically just about everything, all the packages in the repository, all of that stuff.
Right.
So that's kind of first and foremost. Yeah. Has that been an issue? Is there anyone that needs newer hardware? I know someone I do a podcast with, Bill, he has AMD stuff, and also some of his audio equipment needs newer kernels, and so he was having trouble with the 21 series at this point because he needed the upgraded kernel, and so this was a big advancement for him to be able. Now he can use Mint comfortably.
Well, I kind of the opposite effect with the classic Mac Pro. That was running Mint 21 dot whatever was the latest at the time. And I did download the upgrade manager, did the update. Everything went fine. It did the update, but then it wouldn't boot. It would just sit on the Mint logo, and I let it sit for, half an hour or greater or whatever. You can hit the escape key and you can see the everything that's loading and stuff, and you see a lot of failed. The issue I had with that machine is when I was running Linux Mint 21, when I tried to update the kernel past 5.15, it wouldn't work. So I don't know. I don't know if it's just that machine. But now that machine is actually running. I had to change it up to get it to working because I couldn't even go back to 21. It wouldn't even boot off the live USB anymore. There's something got forked in there. So I installed Fedora 40, which is weirdly enough is running the most modern kernel, which is like 6.8 or whatever it is, and it runs fine. But with Linux Mint, I couldn't get the newer Mint to run on that with the newest kernel. I still have Mint on the laptop, but that's where I primarily use Mint anyway. And that's updated fine. I went through the update manager. It's a Mac as well, a MacBook Pro, 2013, and that updated fine, no problem. This is a 2009.
I wonder why
So I
that
don't know,
is.
something to do with it might be something to do with because it's dual processor, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's like I said, I couldn't get past a Linux kernel of like Linux 5 kernel. Every time I updated, it would bork the
So you
the
said that
installation.
it does work with Fedora though, which is a 6 something kernel.
So it's something to do with Linux Mint, the way the
Well-
kernel's written for Mint or something. I don't know.
I was going to say, I wonder if you tried Ubuntu 24.04 proper, just out of curiosity, because if that's the base, is it that, like, I had an issue recently where I was trying to install Bluefin, which is a silver blue derivative, and I usually will reuse the same EFI partition so that I can, whenever you're setting up a new distro, it can read there and add, the other distros, OS Prober, it can find other things. So I tend to reuse it. And there was this long-standing bug since like 2018 where it writes something Fedora specific. It doesn't matter if you're using Silverblue or Fedora Workstation or the way it handles that EFI, if you try to reuse it, it just kept failing. And so I was like, well, wait a minute. Okay, is it Bluefin? So then I went and got Silverblue, and that didn't work. And I'm like, okay, is it Fedora? So then I went and got Fedora Workstation, and it didn't work. And I'm like, wait a minute, something's weird here.
Yep.
And that's when I figured out, okay, I tried a different EFI partition, and it worked. And I'm like, okay. And then I went and looked, and yeah, there's been a long-standing bug. And so I'm curious to see, like, that's how I would do it. I would go get Ubuntu 24.04, and if it booted, then then you can be pretty confident that there's something with Mint.
Yeah, I've got Fedora on it now, so I probably won't go that.
Yeah, I
route
mean,
for
if
a
you care
while.
enough to do it.
But I'm actually having fun with Fedora. I'm not a big fan of GNOME, but it took me a while to get. I went and got the GNOME tweaks and got it set up so that actually can minimize windows and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing
Yeah.
I cared about. I was like, I was not used to navigating without being able to minimize things. And but anyway, I no longer have an Ubuntu system because the other desktops right here was Ubuntu, but I decided to put Manjaro on it to tinker around with that one again because I haven't used Manjaro in a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have MX over here.
Gotcha.
That's pretty cool.
But anyway, as far as Mint goes, other than once I got it updated onto the laptop, and it ran fine. Got all I didn't have to got the update done, and just all the stuff was already installed. Only issue that you ran into is I think somebody mentioned in chat is that it was occasionally it aired out during the upgrade installation, not aired out, but gave you a warning because of like third-party repositories or whatever, something that it didn't like, and you just go through and say click fix it. And like I had Bash Top on there, and it did not like Bash Top, so I had to go through and the thing that it had and give you the option to go through and remove it. So I removed it. I mean, I could put it back on if I need it, but I use a different system monitor now anyway.
The new hotness is
use,
BTOP.
I use
What is it?
Command Center, I think it is.
Yeah, I like
Mission
Command
Center.
too.
Mission Center.
Mission Center, yeah. Yeah, I like that too.
I have to
What
look
is
that
it?
up now.
What did you say, Nate?
I use BTOP instead of Bash Top. It's called BTOP.
Oh, okay.
It's like
yeah,
the
I've seen,
third
yeah, I've
iteration.
seen it. Hmm. So the one that Jason's talking about looks just like the Windows task manager. Like the
Yep.
graphical, and I've always liked the way the graphical, and what's nice is it includes like all the major categories of your hardware. So there's, your processor, your network and memory, but it also has your GPU listed, which it bugs me that a lot of the process monitors, or system monitors don't include the GPU, because I almost always want to see like what's happening with that. So that's Mission Center's pretty sweet for all of that.
I like the fact that it's like task manager, and the fact that you can look at logical processors instead
Exactly.
of,
I was just
you know,
gonna say that. I've always loved that, toggled so you could see all the cores. Yeah. Yeah, it's good stuff.
I just use the Plasma system monitor. It's kind of the same thing.
Well, of course you do. You're a Plasma user.
Yeah, I am. Works great.
Actually, Jason, as a quick sidebar, you mentioned Fedora and having vanilla stock GNOME. I've been using Pop OS for like the last 6 months, and that's one of the main reasons that I like Pop is that they do all of that for you, and they have I usually will have to put ULauncher because I like having a program launcher. They have a launcher built in. They have the dock built in. They have desktop icons. They've got like all of the stuff you would want, tray icons, and it's nice to have like that whole, and because they're all from System 76, it's all cohesive. And one of the problems with the extensions sometimes can be that they're a little sort of different, and so they don't all look like they belong together, and that's kind of nice from System 76 to sort of have it all just look and be like first class, so.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Fedora's actually came a long way. I mean, I did use Fedora a long time ago.
Oh yeah,
And they've come a long, long
long
way.
way.
And when I mean, yes, I had to install the GNOME tweaks thing. But I mean, they have the bar, they have the, all the icons and all this stuff. I don't use desktop icons. I hate stuff on my desktop. I'm weird that way. The clutter always drives me nuts, so I just turn those off.
Yeah.
Excuse me, but it's so far, I mean, I haven't used it a whole lot because, I mean, my stuff for Linux is basically tinkering, just playing around, having, goofing off, and I don't use it I do use them on a daily basis, but I don't use them as a main system.
Right.
When I first joined this community, I was doing that. I was using Mint because, I did that for a year, and I'm going back to Windows because back then I was a gamer. Now I don't really game much. I don't, I mostly tinker with things. But anyway, so
Yeah.
I'd probably go back to using a Linux machine as a main system if I wanted to. But I mean, for my use case, any system will work fine. I've got the Mac.
My dirty secret is that on both of my portable devices, at least, I have Windows and then a distro. So 99% of the time I'm using Linux, but there are those times where it just refuses to do what I need it to do, and which is true of Windows 99% of the time. It refuses to do what I want it to do. So,
Well, yeah, I'm like,
but
I'm a
having
simple
both
guy.
is like, I mean, it's the sort of pragmatic way to look at using a computer, right? I mean, I can do almost everything I ever want to do, but if I need to, it's just a reboot away.
Yep.
Yeah, for me, it's a virtual
And I
machine
actually
away.
don't hate. Yeah, it's. I mean, I guess you could. I don't know why. I like it to be the whole thing. There's something that doesn't feel right about a virtual machine, unless you're
Yeah,
literally
I
doing
don't- I like hardware. I don't like
Right.
virtual.
But unless you're like opening up Adobe Acrobat or some like goofy thing like that, like that's the only reason, then yeah, rebooting is kind of pointless. But
It's
if you're
for
actually
two applications
CAD, right?
essentially. Nope, not
for
CAD.
AutoCAD.
Nope,
No?
it's
Okay.
nope. It's for this RMM software that we're using, which I don't like, and then there's the camera system uses something called XProtect, which all it does is just pull the feeds in. And I was thinking to myself, I could just create my own thing and actually pull in all the feeds from each of the cameras, so I don't need to use the software. I just haven't taken the time to do it.
You know.
Gotcha.
The only
Yeah.
time I've ever seen I could see using a virtual machine Is I was ever like I seen like some of the scam baiter guys. They use virtual machines to obviously to protect their systems when they're allowing scammers to think they're getting access. I could see using a VM for that type of thing, but other than that, I don't really have a use case for it. I mean, I used to use a lot of, when I first started getting into Linux, I was testing them all out, trying to figure out which one I wanted to use. I didn't feel like uninstalling, reinstalling, and that kind of stuff on hardware. So yeah, I did use virtual machines to test, but once I homed in on at the time Mint being my favorite, then I installed it onto a system and used it for my primary system for a year or so.
Gotcha.
We got some comments here in the chat about Linux Mint. So Zoe Ronan says, as an almost perpetual distro hopper, Linux Mint is always a safe haven, and I don't know where to go. Nice. It's kind of like the prodigal son, and then you can just keep coming back home.
Yeah, when you've scrambled your brain from hopping too much. Yeah, I know that feeling.
Oh gosh, I remember when we used to do a hop every week.
Yeah.
Gosh.
That was kind of moved away from that because that was a lot of work.
Oh, it was, and a lot of people didn't want to do it. Once when we're, on the show like this here on the show, people were like, yeah, I didn't have time. Yeah, I didn't want to do it. It was like I think a core, maybe 8 of us that pretty much did it every week.
I think when you're newer to Linux and you haven't really gone through all of the major distros and then even sort of the offshoots, it gives you that opportunity in a group setting to do that, like we're doing here right now. So you do end up really enjoying it and learning a lot. But at some point, you're like, okay, I've already done enough Arch derivatives. I've done enough Ubuntu offshoots,
Yeah.
So
the only thing I still haven't done, which I have been considering, is doing the Arch Linux, from scratch type thing. I haven't done that.
Just installing it the hard way.
Doing it all, getting everything you need, getting your this, that, and the other thing that you need. And I've considered doing that just to see if I could do it, but I haven't been brave enough to actually try yet.
I think it's kind of interesting. It's annoying if you've done it already because things like they'll install Bluetooth, like the Blue Z in the stack for you, but they won't start it. So it's there, but it's not running. And so you try to connect and you're like, where's the Bluetooth button? Oh, it's not running. So they don't make any decisions for you in terms of like what it should be running. But that's interesting at first because then you have to think like, okay, what's all this stuff that's running that needs to be running to support like a desktop session and but once
what's not running that you do need to get running.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Linux Aficionado says, best part about Mint is that the LMDE version also got the latest cinnamon updates too. Familiar, dependable, performant, easy by default, but you can still go all CLI. That's a good point.
Yep. See, that's a common theme you're going to find in my opinion, with Linux Mint is a lot of people when they're talking about like Eric was saying about new users, Linux Mint is it's an easy choice for new users in my opinion because it has that familiar look to it as far as the start I say start menu, the menu comes up and you got all your stuff right there that you need, yada yada yada. It's pretty much set up just to work right off the fresh installation. You do have to run always you run updates after a fresh install, but it's just so easy to use. Now, for me, there are other distros out there that are very, very easy to use, and they're the ones that you're like, huh? But some of the ones that, like even with like Manjaro and Fedora, when I initially started using those two way back in the day, it was a little different because I wasn't used to the desktop and whatever else, and so I went back through. Nowadays they're both very, 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 very easy after the install.
Yeah. And actually something that has always been, I think, a huge benefit for especially newer users or even, let's say, less experienced users who don't maybe think about what you should do on a new system is the welcome process is very, very straightforward. Like you get the welcome screen, welcome to Linux Mint, let's go. You click the button and then it just takes you through first steps, and you're literally just going like, change your desktop colors if you want to, or, set up system snapshots. Maybe you need a driver. You got to update your software. Here's your system. Like it's in a very effective. I think a lot of distros try to do a welcome screen, and I think maybe not all of them are quite as successful, or maybe not quite as successful as Linux Mint is.
They're not intuitive as it's quite intuitive as the
Well,
one.
just
that
the idea
is-
of like one after another, right? Do this, and then do this, and then do this, and
Yep. And Donald in chat, yes, try it again. I was very, very shocked when I reinstalled Fedora. Got the Fedora. I think it's what, 40. I think they're on now. I think it's Fedora 40. And yeah, it was definitely a lot different from the last time I used it. I think the last time I used it was probably like 30 or 32 or something. So it was many versions ago, and this version was definitely much improved on stability and the ease of use, and
yeah,
they've come a long way in improvements.
yeah, I agree. I think Fedora was challenging to use previously, and has gotten much better. I still think a lot of people don't like the needing to use a different repository for like RPM Fusion and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They've softened a little. They used to be really hardcore about like just like Debian, right? Like no closed source software at all, no matter what, even if it makes life difficult.
Yeah, I think you have to go in and actually turn that on though in Fedora. I think you have to go in. There's an option for it, but I think you have to turn it on to be able to use it. Like a third-party repositories and things
Yes,
like that.
right. They have it built in now, and it's different pieces too. It's not necessarily the whole thing. Like there's an NVIDIA repository. There's a Chrome. Different pieces that are there and possible, but not enabled by default. And I think that's a very sort of sane and civil way to handle it, instead of just being like, no, we're not going to give you any firmware or drivers, or if it needs a closed source blob, forget it. And this is a much like more friendly, I guess, way to do
And
it.
I'm sorry about getting everybody on this the Fedora thing. I know this is supposed to be about Mint, but
That's right.
about Linux.
I think if something were to stay on track, that would be like a first. And I think we need to have one of those firsts. I don't think it'd be...
Hey, I just talked about the welcome screen.
So as far as the installation process went,
be right back.
did anybody here have any issues installing or doing updates? Well, you said besides you, Jason, you said you had problems, and so you went to Fedora.
Yeah, I had
from that
only.
one.
I think it's this machine because, like I said, it installed fine on another Mac, which was 4 years newer than this machine.
Okay.
And it worked fine. Granted, it had the same thing because I had Bash Top on there. I didn't like that. I didn't like the fact that I didn't have a snapshot or whatever it is. So I had to make one of those just to do the upgrade. But other than that, it was smooth sailing on
Well,
the laptop, not the
yeah.
desktop.
That's good. Well, at least it was smooth sailing on something. So what I noticed that it was literally 13 steps from booting it on, like turning on the system, to include turning on the system as one of the steps, to having being rebooted and in the operating system. It's literally 13 steps to include, every interaction I had, and I bundled all the user stuff as one step, but it's like 13 steps is what it was.
Yeah. And certainly because most of us are familiar with install process, like it's very, very, autopilot, sort of second nature at this point. It's the friction I have when I'm installing anything anymore is how difficult is it to set up the partition? Because I'm always doing a custom install where I'm not taking over a whole partition, you know what I mean, or a whole disk, I guess. And so Pop! OS was actually pretty difficult because I had to use anytime I have to go out to like gparted and have to deal with that and then come back and refresh, and then, oh, I didn't get that right, and I got to go back, and can be a little bit disjointed, and that's for me as an experienced user, so I can't even imagine what that's like for someone who doesn't even know what a disk partition is. So, and Mint, I think, does a very good job of the way that it presents, excuse me, presents the disk and the options it gives you, and then the way that you can, choose to take over a partition that's already there, that kind of thing, without needing to go and go through a separate tool.
Right.
It's not as convenient as Calamares. I still think Calamares is my favorite because you can literally just click and say, I want that.
Well, I mean,
and just say replace. I think they use a replace feature or whatever it is. Yeah.
yeah, I didn't mess around with that, but I thought it seemed pretty straightforward as far as that was concerned. Yeah, but I mean, I just used an entire disk. So I suppose if you had a larger array of disks, that might have been more complicated. Is that what you're saying?
It is, and if you're using like, Jason was just talking about Fedora. Anaconda is a nightmare. If you have to do any kind of custom partitioning, I absolutely despise that installer with the passion of like a white hot burning sun. And I don't understand why they haven't changed it. Like, it's like someone has too much pride. Like, they developed it 50 years ago and they're like, we're not going to change it as long as I'm alive. It's just like,
We're not gonna take it.
you can seriously make it easier than it is. I know that there's a lot of advanced sort of scripting. Like, there's a lot of ways Anaconda does things that is not facing me, but as an end user with trying to dual boot systems, it's a serious pain in the butt. So anyway, yeah, Mint I think does a good job of that. Certainly a much better job. So
Got it. So one of the things I noticed when I was running, what is going on here? When I was running Mint, so the general theme is, I think they've kind of kept with the general look and feel of Mint, I think, for a while now, which is good. It's just, what Mint feels like. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little more black and white as opposed to the green hints, I think, than before, which I guess that's fine too. But I feel like it had more green highlights, and so it's fine. Desaturating the background, everything, I think that's fine too. But it almost kind of felt like when I was like with the options to shut down, I just thought about this just as I was doing it, but it kind of reminded me of a desaturated Windows XP interface. Just big buttons, colorful, maybe not desaturated, like a non-desaturated, I should say. And I thought, no, it's fine, it's good, so it's familiar. So it almost seems like the experience to me seems like an amalgamation of like Windows XP through Windows 7 usage is kind of what it feels like.
yeah, very much. Yeah, Cinnamon is not shameless. I mean, I think the idea that generations of people at this point have used Windows style interface, right? Cupertino, in Mate. And I think that's just, it's a convention, right? And it's hard to just say, well, it's Windows. I mean, it certainly is, because that's what we consider, that's where it obviously comes from. But the idea that you have a start button or a menu button, and then you have your tray, and I mean, it's just like Apple has its, layout. And I think I'm sorry, Redmond. Cupertino's Apple. Redmond is in Mate.
Right. I knew you were going with that.
I had it backward. But I
That's
mean,
fine. I'm not gonna hold it against
it's
you.
just the way that you sort of, because spatially, like, my wife was in Mac OS 9 and previous user, and if you remember, that was a spatially driven UI, meaning that when a window opened, it always opened in the same place, the same size. And that's, if your brain works that way, that's what you got used to. And then OS 10 comes in and blows that completely apart, because it was a completely different operating system. But she tried it one time and she's like, I hate this. I hate it so much. I was just like,
That's funny.
okay, I guess you're not a Mac user anymore. So she switched to Windows when OS 10 came out, and that was it. But and that, it just speaks to people have a certain expectation of how something works, and if you, like to Jason's point, if you sit down in front of GNOME and you don't understand what's going on,
Mm.
it's basically it's a useless device. If the person can't use it, what good is it? You know.
Yep.
So it
That's what.
is good.
Yeah, that's why it kind of turned me away from GNOME in the first place. Like I tried, I think one of the first times I tried it was probably like Pop OS or something, and you know the whole way the windows are and the when you hit the menu to bring up the applications, it pops up and I don't know. And then didn't have minimize buttons, didn't have you had basically had to customize everything. You still do, but I know how to do it now. When I first tried it, I was just like, no, stay with Mint.
Yeah, it's like everybody, and I think fairly rightly so, looks at Elementary and Pantheon and says,
Pantheon.
well, that's Mac,
Oh,
right? That's a Mac clone, right? And and of course they're quick to say, Danny, the developer's like, no, it's
Mhm.
it's not Mac, it's not a Mac clone. Well, okay, but you have a launcher at the bottom that looks a lot like, the Mac launcher, and you've got the bar at the top, and you've got, there's so many similarities that it's of
And-
course there is inspiration there.
And for the meta key, they have the open option. Is that what it is? Whatever the Mac uses. Looks like a
Yeah, and the buttons are on the left side of the window, just like in a Mac. I mean, again, you're drawing from your comfort level
Mhm.
with whatever you're used to. So
yeah, and I think that's fine. I would say for the most part, I think Apple's done a good job with their UI. It's not my preference, but it's at least a coherent and well integrated environment. For an Apple
I
user,
can
it
agree with
is.
you.
For an Apple
Yeah.
user, it is. For me, it's
To
not.
Jason's point, once you know where stuff is and know how it works, I just
Yeah.
think it's clunky to me.
Yeah, I agree.
yeah. Once you're
It's-
when you're used to a certain way of doing things, trying to break out of that normalcy, you're just like, no, this is too much for my brain.
So in fairness, like I can jump on different operating systems and be fine.
Oh,
But
so can I.
but I feel like the way Apple does things is their own way,
Yeah, well,
and-
everything Apple does is their own way.
Yeah.
and I don't like it.
Well, having the global menu at the top and needing to remember to go up to the menu at the top, like that's just a convention that you have to experience and know that that's how you do it. I tend
But
to
that's fine.
forget.
Yep.
Well, yeah, it is fine if you, like to Jason's point, you learn how to change. If you can change things, you learn how to change it the way you want it and get on with life. But I I don't disagree. I don't think anybody who has any familiarity with computers wouldn't. It's like being in a car that happened to be right-hand drive. I mean, you're still going to understand how to drive it. It's a car. It's going to feel weird, but you're going to be able to do it.
It feels weirder in the passenger seat than it does driving it.
Mhm.
I've driven right hand on RHD a couple of times. My buddy Jeff has a Jeep,
Mhm.
and it was weirder being in the passenger seat than it
Oh,
was driving
not
it.
driving.
Yeah, because you're thinking
I
you're
get
gonna
you.
should be holding the wheel.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wait a minute.
you don't. I don't get it, but it's really strange not driving in that seat.
That's hilarious.
Yep.
I don't know if anybody else has done it, but I've done it a
I
couple
have
of
not.
times. Been a passenger a lot.
No,
Well, for
never
some
driven
reason-
or ridden one.
For some reason, the
Me
U.S.
either.
Virgin Islands drives on the right side of the road, like everywhere else in the United States, yet has left-hand drive vehicles. It's so dumb. And like the problem with that is, imagine you're coming around a corner. You can't like if you're in a left if you sorry, a right-hand drive car. So if you're in the right-hand side and you're making a right bend, you can't see around the corner, right? Because like if you were in the left-hand seat and you're going around, no, I guess it's true that the opposite if you're going the left-hand, whatever. But it's very alarming. And we were there, and I'm there with my father-in-law, and every time he would start driving, he'd just automatically go to the left side of the road because he's in a right-hand drive car, and I'm like, Dad, no, you're on the wrong side of the road. It's very, very strange, but yeah, it a computer is a computer is a computer, unless they've done something really dumb and just like, you know, taken away the ability, like there's no file manager or something weird like that, then yeah, then obviously that's a problem. But yeah, for the most part, I think we can all get along with stuff we're not even necessarily familiar with. It comes down to preference, right?
So in the
everything does.
in the pre-show we were talking about, I was talking to Jinda, and he said he was experimenting with some applications, some Mint applications for media playing, and it was really interesting. And he started talking about it, and I didn't want to move on before we went down that rabbit hole a little bit. And so, what were the applications that you tried out, and what were some of the unique features of them?
Well, the thing was is when I installed Linux Mint, I ran it and I go, well, what should I do with it? Because I put it on just a hard drive I had laying around. And I go, because I mean, I like to destroy stuff. So I decided to try every MP3 player I could find. Because Prime Days was up. I bought myself a brand new little hard drive that I could put my music on. And they had the old Rhythm Box installed, which I kind of thought was dead, but evidently it's not. It's not dead. And they have what they call a DAAP server. Okay. You click on it, you make that run, and now you have a server on your music. I downloaded an application for my phone, and I could play the music on my phone now. It took me literally 5 minutes to set it up.
That's cool.
It took me longer to tell you about it than it did to set it up. I mean, I literally just clicked the button, hit preferences, typed in the name of the music, and that was it. I couldn't believe how well it worked, but it's old. It's not really, it's an old system. Like I looked online, how to use it, and it was like 12 years old.
Yeah.
All the responses I got. So I don't know if there's something better on the market. That's more of my question, because I was like, maybe there's some better way to make a music server, but I can't think of one because this took literally 5 seconds.
Yeah, it's like having a DLNA server, right, for your videos and stuff, where it doesn't matter what the player is. Like you can just read the file structure. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
cool. I mean, good.
It works really well. I can't complain about it. I tried a bunch of other media players, but they all work about the same. I mean, this one just had that feature in it that I kind of like.
I can't honestly say the last time I used a media player. Quite honestly, because I do most of my music listening to, because I have the I pay for the YouTube Prime or whatever it's called, so I don't get the commercials on YouTube because I hate them. Anyway, and the YouTube music, the quality of the YouTube music, especially when you have the paid service, is really, really nice. And what I do is I just take like an artist I like, so like Aerosmith, for example, and I just right click it, hit start radio, and then it just plays rock music in different various bands and stuff for hours upon hours upon hours. It's like infinitely, basically. It doesn't end until you turn it off. And so that's the way I listen to music nowadays.
Speaking of an interesting and sort of unique app that I've never seen anywhere else, have you guys played around with Hypnotics?
I've
heard of it.
Yeah, it's a free TV and music. So it's all like IPTV stuff. So if you go to TV channels, it like literally lists like 40 countries and like Moldova and Luxembourg. Like and you could just like go through and watch TV from Paraguay. Like, why not? Sure. And it's not flawless, but it does actually work, and it works pretty well. I mean, so I heard them talking about it on one of the UK-based podcasts, and they were talking about having, I think it was like Sky TV or something, where you could watch Sky TV through this app, and they were just like, how does this even work? And anyway, it's one of those like quirky, only Mint kind of thing. I mean, sure, you can run it somewhere else. Like I always end up getting the web app that they have. It's one of their like core little apps where you can make basically
Yep.
you know, a windowed version of a web page, and like a local install or whatever. And I will use that, and but I'll put it on like, you know, whatever other system I'm using, because I like certain things like Evernote. I have as a standalone little app, you know. I mean, most times I just use a browser, but it is useful for some things. But yeah, Mint it's just fun because I think there's always this like fascination with like how small can a Linux distro be, and you know, there's too much software, there's too many choices made for me, and it's like Mint's fun because they're like, yeah, we're gonna put a whole bunch of weird stuff on here that you've never heard of, and
So
Yeah.
I think for the desktop experience, though, I think that's preferable, really.
yeah,
If you're brand new into Linux, you don't know what there's to know even,
hmm
and what not to know. So having a bunch of applications in there to go through, because I remember my first initial, wanderings into Linux, which is Mandrake. That's what they did on their Power Pack edition. They throw in all kinds of just goodies in there, and you play with all these different little applications. You know, the penguins that crawl on your windows, and your XIs that follow you around, and all these different little goofy gadgets that they're not practical. You're not going to keep using them, but they're just fun toys that
Yeah.
you're going to pick up for a while and then just put on the virtual shelf on your, and so
Health on the shelf.
yeah, basically. And I think having those little apps, I think, is good, because you don't know what you are going to like, because a lot of people are already stuck in their ways, or they use Windows Media Player or iTunes or whatever, and don't realize that there are other flavors, other ways to experience music besides those mainstream ways. And so I think it's pretty cool. I really do.
And then, yeah.
It
And then
it does.
yeah, I remember Mandrake. Oh boy, that was fun times back in those days installing Linux that way.
Sure was. It wasn't too bad. Most of the stuff was automated. It was like the first easy one. Yup. Oh, I missed some of these chats here, these text messages, whatever here. So Co2610 says, I upgraded my 21.3 to 22 on my MBP 17-inch 2011. What's MBP? I don't know.
MacBook Pro.
MacBook Pro. That would make sense. Everything went just fine. Rudy's Retro Intel says, my upgrade crashed at the end of the install. Had to reinstall from scratch on the 2013 Alienware 14-inch. Very strange errors. I wonder if they were like I'd be interested in seeing if I know that some distributions are more sensitive to if you've made any repository changes or made any customizations. Sometimes I can't negotiate those when doing upgrades. So Rudy's Retro Intel says, dual boot is the best of both worlds. And Michael Whalen Jr. says, I love using Linux at work with Chevy. All of software requires Windows, however. It could use Linux as a primary system. If I could use Linux as a primary system, I would use either Linux Mint, but I also like Ubuntu Studio. That's good to know. So, yeah, it's cool. So I have some feedback from Eris, who couldn't be here. So a couple. What was that? Oops. It says, I was able to upgrade both Linux Mint 20.3 Cinnamon and XFCE to the latest 22 Mint. I first upgraded the 21 to 21.3 and finally to 22. It seemed to go somewhat smoothly, but I did hit a bug on XFCE. Login on Linux Mint 22 XFCE requires login to log in twice. You get the login screen twice. It happened to me on a fresh Linux Mint 22 XFCE upgrade from XFCE 20.3 as well. So having updated from 20.3 to 22, there should be a consolidation of upgrading the distro. For updating a mirror or X update, you need to click on the button below Edit on the Update Manager and find the update. However, for a major update, you need to use the mini upgrade, which according to the official installations, you install from the command line and start the app from the command line with sudo. So will it make it easy via GUI to stay on the LTS kernel, or is this something that will have to be done via the terminal? Mint now enables HWE with X release. What's HWE? Hardware enablement, probably. I remove hardware enablement on my machine when.
Do we lose
I am
Nate's
muted,
voice?
Nate. Something happened to Nate. He went mute.
Nate, you're muted.
Uh-oh. Now he's got to do a repair.
Is it working now?
Yes.
Yay!
Did you try turning it off and on again?
I did. So it sounds like Eris had a mostly positive experience. I think I'm gonna have to zip tie this sucker down. Not now, but I'm gonna zip tie it.
Oh, is the cable
'Cause-
just get loose or something?
It's a micro USB. It's brand new cable, brand new device. Just it's micro USB.
Hmm.
So I don't run Mint on a regular machine. I don't just it doesn't appeal to me for a primary. It's fun to dabble in for me, but it's not it doesn't I don't enjoy it as a primary. I prefer the plasma. But I did have some more to ask here. So no snaps, is that no problem? What do you think?
And snapshots?
No snaps as in snap software.
Oh, snap. Oh, snap. Okay. I have no problem with it.
I got no troubles with that either.
Honestly, I don't even think I've ever used Snap or anything, because my use case is not the same as everybody else's. I'm not like a daily, I'm not an extreme Linux user, so to speak. I'm a tinkerer. I play around with it and all that kind of stuff. So Snap is, it's there, it's not there. I don't care. And hi, Eric's Edge.
Oh, yeah, and I see he's.
Snap's not something. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Say your snap.
No, I, was
I
gonna
want
say,
your thoughts.
I have not willingly used a Snap in a long time.
Okay.
I have on a server, not on a
Willingly
desktop.
used.
Though.
Willingly, he does. Well, we're seeing a good amount of people from the Mac community in here again. Yay!
Yep, that's awesome. It's nice that the Mac community wants to hang out with a bunch of Linux nerds, huh?
Well, some of them do use Linux, like Eric said does.
Yep,
Eric
I
said
see that.
Rudy uses it. I don't know if Dave does. I don't think Dave has anything. He's coming just to support.
That's because he's a nice guy, and I like that. So Rudy says, "I love Linux, but hate how people bash each other of which distro is best." So
Yes,
I'm
that
just
was,
going
that was my biggest issue. Biggest issue when I first joined the community. I don't know if you remember, I gave that long speech that one day about my when I first joined this community and my experience going through the forums trying to get help. And there were some forums good, other forums not so good.
So what I think is funny there is, in my route into Linux, I never ran into that because I went right into the Mandrake community, and they were all very nice. And then I went into the SUSE community, and they were all very nice. And then when I started like venturing into like other more general Linux areas, that's actually where I first discovered it. I was like 10 years into my Linux journey before I figured any of that stuff out.
Yeah,
maybe not.
It
quite
was
that
the
long.
it was primarily when I was like Mint community was amazing. I had no issues with the Mint community. I think it was more the general Linux forums, not necessarily like a specific distro, where I was, trying to find, I was new to it and I was trying to get some help, and I think I stumbled into the Arch Linux Linux groups, and that's where I got the most flack because don't you know what you're doing? Then no, I'm a noob.
That was one of my first as well. A long time ago was into Arch, and I asked a question and got roasted pretty good, and was just like, okay, well, screw you guys.
That was and then I can't remember where I stumbled on to this group initially. It was a forum thing or something somewhere. I led me to you guys or whatever. Got all the help I ever needed. Then I joined the various, watched various videos, and then eventually joined the community and joined the video, like the live streams. And everybody was always very, very supportive, very, very questions answered, talk, and the old forums and stuff like that. It was great.
So,
Excuse me.
but on that note, Rudy, if you're not using OpenSUSE, you're just doing it wrong. I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding.
Anyway.
I'm kidding.
Yeah. Yeah, but Rudy, yeah, just don't listen to those naysayers, you know. Honestly, though, you should probably join the, is it Tux Digital? Is that what it's called?
Yep,
Am I
Tech Digital
saying that
Network.
right?
That's a nice
The
group of
Tux
people.
Digital Discord. If you have any questions on Linuxes, on anything Linux, they have their Discord, and you can find all the help you need there from various, a lot of people. There's so many different. They're so huge, and how many different shows they have and stuff.
So Eric's Edge says, I have a dual boot install of LMDE. No, I gave a dual boot of install of LMDE a try. Unfortunately, even with the latest non-open source NVIDIA drivers, it was a slide down under OBS. Yeah, I think if you have NVIDIA, you got to have the proprietary drivers. It seems like, but you can install those after the fact. It's no.
He does also
And-
say, I still have the dual boot installed. Should I try another source?
Hey, you might want to. Yeah, you might also just want to try like straight the instead of LMDE, try the straight.
The proprietary?
Yeah. And then Marco says, very cool pink PC. Yeah, this is a 3D printed. It's a Callisto 2. It's got a framework main board inside of it, so it's actually technically a laptop. Technically.
And
by
I got
hardware.
Mach 7 radio intercepts. He says, I must be the only one who brings questions to the forums just to mess with people. Mess with trolls.
No, it's good. You're supposed to do that. That's required.
Love it. Oh, he did install proprietary drivers. Oh.
And then Clash and Crew says, DistroBox makes the particular GNU Linux OS one uses almost a non-issue at this point. And that is correct. Good sir. If you use a Linux, if you use DistroBox, you can just be a smorgasbord of all those different parts. That's what I do that. And I even have a distro box of OpenSUSE Tumbleweed because then I can have all my weird stuff in that distro box. And so when I do updates, I don't have to worry about it causing problems. It kind of smooths things out a little bit. Yeah, and he says at this point, just aim for stability. Yeah, that's very true. Oh, Eric said I did install the proprietary drivers.
Yep, he did. So
Well, it
we'll
sounds
have
like we need to
at that.
troubleshoot this thing. What are you doing tomorrow?
Mm-hmm. It's probably working.
Oh. So, that's good stuff. So as far as like snaps go, I find that I can get the flat packs just as easily at this point. I think there are a few things that snaps have that I can't get on flat pack, but I don't even know what those are at this point. So, I don't know that that's
I do have a like bash top. When I had bash top on the systems, that was done through a flat pack.
okay.
And I think I know there's something else. I can't remember what it was, but there's some other software that I have on my Mint installation. A couple things that came from Flatpaks, but I don't remember what they are.
Well, that's actually a good segue into that part of the new changes. They've gone the way of elementary with flagging unverified flat packs. I actually have it turned off to begin with. Like, they're not even flagged, they're just disabled. Which I don't know that I kind of question the validity of that decision. I think there's a small chance. I mean, first of all, I have never heard of somebody getting a malicious app onto FlatHub and then having that app do something dangerous or destructive in the wild. I've never heard of it. I'm sure it's possible, but it doesn't seem like it's happening. And you would think that some pain in the ass would do it just to see if they could. And if it hasn't happened, then there's got to be enough control in place that that things are sort of either self-regulating or there's enough oversight that it's stopping it from happening. Now, I'm not challenging the world to go do this, but I think the oversight, and the reason I think this is a little bit narrow-minded, is I would like to see, okay, the totality of software that exists on FlatHub. And my guess is that probably 25% of it is verified. meaning you're basically saying that 75% of the available software, and these are, literally just making these numbers up. I have absolutely no idea, but that's my guess, is that all of that software that isn't verified is essentially meaningless. Like you don't see any value to it. You're also saying that somebody who takes their time to package something that a developer doesn't want to have on Flatpak or isn't able to, or whatever the reason is, they're making it available to the wider community through their own effort, which I think is commendable, not not the other way around. I think, the fact that it's possible that something bad could happen, and we're just going to completely throw out all of that additional software is, I just don't agree with it. I think it's dumb. So, maybe there's a third category or some other way to sort of have a more succinct way of describing a piece of software that's hosted on FlatHub, that it's either verified because the developer is the one who packages it and puts it there, but there should be trusted maintainers, I think, as well. Because if you look at normal distributions and the software that's in the distros themselves, in the repositories, there are people who have keys, right, to be able to publish updates, and it's not like there's one person or one small group of people who are checking out everything in a distro. There are lots of people contributing, and so you have this idea that there are people that are trusted, and I think you could probably extend something similar like that on FlatHub, where somebody's known, has identified themselves, is known to the community, is known to, whoever, the powers that be, and then instead of just a blanket unverified, there's some assurance that, the person packaging this is not a bad actor. I don't know. I hated it when Elementary did it, because they threw up this big red warning, this is unverified software. It made it look like a virus or something, and it was like, it's not a virus. It's a useful piece of software.
But they flagged everything on FlatHub. They didn't flag just unverified. They flagged everything.
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
I don't disagree, but I'm just saying that practice of saying this isn't first party, whatever first party means to that particular distribution. So we're just going to say that everything else is in some way, the implication is that it's dangerous.
So
Zoe was saying that the only bad thing about it now is that unverified apps don't have reviews and ratings. So you can't.
Well,
look at
that's
the apps.
within their store. They have reviews and ratings on FlatHub.
So it's only within the Mint store.
Yeah.
Mint
yeah,
software,
that was
whatever it's
Mint's
called?
decision to not show that. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. That's good to know. I never go to the FlatHub, honestly.
I'm one of the weird people that I hate software managers.
I like
I
to
really
use
do.
the
Terminal.
It's easy. Well, I do. That's why I do most of my stuff in the terminal. Yeah,
the terminals
I
are so
actually
much
go
quicker.
through the website.
and I
What's
like
that?
I like actually using the terminal. It just looks cool.
The terminal is so much quicker, and actually, the Flatpak commands are all good now. They were clunky before, but now they're quite good. And so, if I have to search for a Flatpak, I'll just do it right there in the terminal. It's so much quicker than going to the website or any of the app managers. So I'll just do it in the terminal. It's just
Well, the advantage of a software store or the website is discoverability. Like you have the ability to just go. I find consistently all sorts of great software. Like literally the slider at the top I'm looking at on FlatHub. Not the exercise timer, but this Gapless is a new GTK music player, and music players to me are like catnip. Like I have to try every single one. And so that's actually a really nice little clean design gapless. Alpaca lets you run AI models like LLM models on your system locally. It's really easy to use. So that's on the main page. Curtail is helps you squish images for the web. I mean, there's so many useful applications that if I only use the command line, I would never know about. So I do appreciate that aspect of it, but the website's so much faster than any software store. But anyway.
So, have you tried GPT for all for your language model?
No, I've been using Llama 3.
Yeah, it
3B.
uses Llama 3 internally, but it's like a container you can try all these different language models.
Oh, cool. No, I haven't tried
It's GPT for all. I kind of want to, for our next application appetizer, maybe do something like another AI one. See if Ultimate is willing to come back and talk about those things. Because I've been
it. Oh,
using.
okay, so this is
I've
like,
been-
yeah.
yeah,
Good.
this is like I run locally, GPT for all, and I can ask it like esoteric questions, and point it to websites and have it, or even PDF manuals and things like that to help me with things.
Mhm.
And on one hand, I'm going to say it's very cool. On the other hand, I'm like, is that starting to cut me off from community though? That concerns me a little bit. That I think there's a
What do you mean?
well, like, so one of my concerns, just in technology, is that it isolates us. And I like things like Linux Saloon and the Text Digital Network because it brings us nerds together to talk and interact and to learn. But some technology has a propensity to actually cut people off, and that concerns me from a social human perspective, because none of this matters without the human perspective. So that's one of those things that it's kind of like culture and technology. It's one of those things that concerns me a little bit. I want to make sure that I don't know.
Gotcha.
I
well, yeah,
would-
I
yeah,
understand
worry
that. I can see that. That's one of the reasons why I like to join like this group and then the Mac group like tomorrow and
But
on Sundays. You know, we have the same similar thing here, but with the Mac people.
but are you an
Is my only
exception
other-
and not the rule?
I'm definitely not the rule. You know, definitely not. A lot of people, if you look around the, social media has basically, in my opinion, it's not social media, but social interactions have become. If you look at people that are actually like sitting at a dinner table or out at a restaurant, 90% of the time they're not even being social. They're on their phones, doing something,
Right.
not even paying attention to each other. That's the social norm now. Just sit around a table and pretend you're together. That's what technology has done to the social aspect of humanity. Is basically, taking
Made
it
us more
to,
lonely.
Well,
yeah.
yes and no. I mean, I think it's a double-edged thing, right? On one hand, there is absolutely, I have met, and I can, it's funny to say like, oh yeah, my friend in Germany, my friend in Australia, my friend in, and without technology, that wouldn't be possible, unless I had like pen pals or something. Like the fact that I'm able to talk to people routinely from all over the world, I think is pretty cool. And that to me,
yes.
that's technology that's made my life better, especially since I don't have physically, I'm not able to do a lot of things that I used to be able to do. And so for me, technology is an enablement for me to be able to still be social and do things that I can't do anymore. And so I don't disagree that, I've made the observation that, 10 years ago, if I went to any random waiting room somewhere, you'd have a couple younger people on a phone, but the majority of people, especially, middle-aged and older, would just be sitting there talking or just, quietly or reading, a newspaper or something. And now, like everyone, no matter what age they are, is sitting there on a smartphone, and that's definitely, it is an inward facing thing. And that is kind of like, I'm one of the weird people that actually looks around and tries to make eye contact with someone so I could like talk. not in an annoying way.
Oh yeah, same here. I go into a crowd and just start talking to people. I don't care.
Yeah. But so
After the show, I got a
It's-
story
it-
on that.
it's good and bad, right?
Can be.
But anyway, to circle back to what you were saying, so I was using Alpaca, which honestly, it's the same thing as GPT for all. It's just a local framework for running
Yep.
LLM. Anyway, so I was actually trying to use uh, ChatGPT and Perplexity, both of them, to do this. So I had to sign up. My kid's school is making me use yet another app. They drive me crazy with this. I've got like 10 apps that I have to use to interact with the school in different ways. And every one of them has their own terms of service and is going to steal my data and do who knows what with it. And so they have their usual gigantic terms of service. And one of the most useful things I've found for AI is to condense that down, to summarize it. And so I was feeding it this, 25-page document, and I ran out of tries, I guess, on both of those systems. They were like, "Oh, no, you have to update or upgrade," and I'm like, "No." So then I went to Alpaca, opened it up, went to Llama 3B, said, "Hey, I'm gonna paste in a bunch of text, or no, I'm gonna give you this file, this markdown file, and I want you to summarize it for me." And so it did. And then I said, okay, very specifically, I want to know about what rights do they have over my personal data. And so it comes back and it gives me a very succinct, you know, uh, summary of that data. And so for certain things, I've had it's a very useful tool. It saves me a tremendous amount of time having to like dig through and do all that work. And um, it's actually amazing to me, having played around with some of these things. Like, obviously you're doing it too with GPT for all, but when you sit down and you actually start to play around with it and you get past the hype, you can figure out like, how is this going to be useful to me, at least in the current state that it's in.
Hmm.
And you're right. I can just sit here and ask, you know, I don't ask factual information unless I'm providing the facts, because like it's not good at that. It will lie and imagine things and hallucinate. It does it all the time. And I'm talking about GPT-4, like the supposedly the vanguard, like the most advanced, GPT or chat model. You ask it a simple question. I forget what it was the other day, and I asked the question, and it was just completely wrong, 100% wrong. And I went, and I even said, "You're completely wrong," and it went, "Oh yeah, you're right. I'm sorry, I was wrong." What? So anyway, I can get off on a tangent with AI stuff, but I've been having fun just sort of trying to understand how it works,
Right.
because you can kind of understand the method to the madness after a while. Like, it does kind of make sense. But anyway,
Yeah, that's one thing I actually haven't messed with a whole lot with any of the AI stuff. I haven't had any real reason or desire to goof around with
well, next
GPT
next
or
time you have something
whatever
like
else
that,
is out there.
yeah, next time you have like a long document to summarize, like I had show notes too, the same thing. I wanted to get a summary of the most recent Distro Hoppers Digest and see what it could come up with. I was like, give me a 3-sentence blurb on all of this data. And it came back and it wasn't ideal. So I said, okay, now I'll, cut it down so that it's less wordy, and I want it to be, 2 sentences. And it comes back. And so it's a good tool for that. But don't ever rely on it to be factually correct.
So I used it to give me a summary on the Linux Mint release for today.
Oh, did you?
Yep. I pointed to the
Cool.
release notes. I said, because I just want to condense. If I read the entire release notes, you can read them yourself. We just want to go
Yeah.
over the high. We just want a high level. So I can
Right.
go through it and create the high level, or I can ask it to create the high level for me, and then I go through
Mhm.
and I just edit it a little bit for me to make it fit me, and then the information I think is important, and that was it. So yeah, it's very handy.
Yeah,
So
Eric says it's entirely artificial and not intelligent. It's a statistical text generator with a huge database. He's used it
Right.
to write some prose for non-critical stuff.
Right. And it understands natural language. That's really the critical difference between a search engine, which if I don't know, you guys have probably noticed this, but if you try to get a long, specific question to a search engine, it will latch on to one of those terms and take you in the wrong direction. And there's no way to tell it. Like, stop doing that. Like, you can hit minus one thing or plus. There are different, like, operators that you could put in there. But ultimately, the way that a search engine works and that's where, like, an AI model is effective, because it understands what I'm telling it to do. It may not give me the right answer, but it understands what I'm trying to tell it to do, that's where I think, like, your assistant type applications, like on your smartphone and stuff, I think they'll be able to adapt the technology to constrain it so that it's less likely to hallucinate or whatever. It's using a very small data set instead of being allowed to be creative, I guess is a good way to say it. And
I think I think it depends on how you use the tool. Ultimately, if you give it a very pointed question, you give it a resource to do a specific task, great. If you try and have it like give an opinion on something, it'll just go all over the place. It's
right.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's also shown itself technically from a software development standpoint as well, because I mean, a lot of the software developers I've heard that have used it say that it is very effective at getting you to a certain point, right? It helps you to fill little gaps, to do a lot of the busy work, and it's all very technical, right? There's no like creativity to it. It's either correct or it's not, like in code especially, because either it's going to run or it isn't, and so in certain domains, the AI, which, yeah, you're right, artificial intelligence is a terrible term for it, but whatever we want to think of it as, it is very good at certain things.
Artificial information.
So what I think is fun, because I use the Llama 3.1 Instruct now, and what's been fun for me is like I actually have fun conversations with it. I know it sounds terrible, but like,
no, I do too. I do too.
And then I will always tell it thank you and this is great, and it responds.
I say please.
Yeah, and I say please also. Well, I think it's
you and I are weird people.
Listen, when the robot overlords take over, they'll know.
Right, they'll remember me.
Yeah. So, anyway.
Oh God.
And so it's so like I was working with trying to understand some of the options for NFS mounting these shares, and I said, so I understand this and this, but this I don't understand. And so it broke it down, and I says, I still understand it. What do you mean by this? And then it broke that down even more. And there's no way, had I read through all those documents, I would have been able to pull that information out. And so it helped me find a solution so much quicker because I knew what I wanted, and it got me to that point very rapidly. And then that's a great
example. Yep.
And then the other thing too is like, so, and we should probably say this for an open mic night. But anyway, so I'll cut off there. Because we can talk about AI for that, because it's fun. It's a fun tool that is easily misused, and I think you have to be careful in how you use it. But
and I can tell you one thing about the AI conversation is that chat going too.
I think it's a real shame.
About in chat.
my last word on this is that I think it's a real shame that they're trying to use it for search engines, because it's absolutely terrible at that. And I think most people's interaction with it is going to be through Google. It's going to be through DuckDuckGo or, Bing or whatever, and they're going to, or Copilot, and they're going to say, "Wow, this is awful."
Copilot.
Like, what? Who would use this? Not understanding that that's probably the worst use of it there is, asking for factual information. But if you, like you're saying, I did something very similar. I think it was maybe FS tab or it was some kind of like esoteric, like I was getting the wrong flag or something. And I was just like, let me see if it knows what to do. And absolutely, like it knew exactly, what to put in there. And I told it what I already had. And it said, oh, no, you want to do this. And it was like, oh, really? Okay, why? And then, like you said, tell me why. And then it explained it. I'm like, oh, okay. So.
Rudy.
So,
sorry,
Rudy, I'm not Canadian, but I say please and thank you because I can hear my mother yelling at me.
Respect.
Oh,
Because
I
respect.
do too.
Oh, it's not even my mother. It's my grandmother.
All right, well,
I start with I'm sorry.
Well, if you're
That's
Canadian,
my
you say
my
sorry.
opener.
You have to say sorry. If
Sorry.
you're Canadian.
Please
Sorry if you're
forgive me.
Canadian.
I know not what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
I'm
right,
sure I
so
did something wrong.
we're running out of time here, and I will make sure to get to Ben here before he falls asleep. Next week is an open mic night, so we can bring this conversation we're having today. Hopefully, you can be here next week, and we can talk AI and how we use it. I'd like to do that. Then maybe we can then have that a follow on for applications, different AI applications that we can use to enhance our ability to be productive and not do terrible things. Because, like any tool, I can use a pneumatic nailer for good, or I can use it for evil. It's up to me. It's just a tool. All right, so for a community free pour, I want to get into we'll get into what's going on with you and
Storm OS.
Ben. Storm
I
OS, you
look
said
like
that
I
you.
was falling myself asleep.
Why? So make sure you don't fall asleep on me, because if you do
Oh,
that, then
dude,
I'm gonna have
no,
then
no,
I'm
no,
I'm
no.
gonna have guilt again.
I'm not gonna pull that stunt again. Oh, trust me, I'm awake,
For
even though
now.
I don't sound like it.
That is late.
All right, all right. Well,
And I only got an hour of sleep last night, so I'm a bit tired myself.
oh, geez, you're tired too. Okay. Well, anyway, so on to Storm OS. So we've just pushed out our July 28th ISO, which there's going to be a new edition that I'm going to be talking about that's coming in the works soon. But we'll get into that after this brief Arch update. So I noticed that my buddy Jonathan from Linux Tube uh, told me about. There was some things that I had missed in the last update. So that's kind of why I think you guys picking Mint this week might have been a smarter move. So either way. Um, the things we missed was the terminal size was a bit off, he said. So I fixed that and I added in Grandpa in there. And we also had a screen recorder revamp that was taken care of. And also we included the latest version of the screen recorder in there. And very minor fixes were done. We removed the chaotic AUR repo as well as the CacheOS repos because those were causing very weird keyring issues. So we took those out and we decided to keep Yay in there. So yeah, very basic and very much needed fixes were put in. And the latest ISO is up on SourceForge as well as a torrent. So yeah, very, very minor changes, but required, like I said. So yeah, and oh, another thing, we did also add the option to install via SSH alongside our two installers on the desktop. So yeah. So if you want to remote in from an existing distro and you load up in, say, a VM or another machine and you want to install remotely, now you can do that. So that is a new addition into Storm OS because there was a wiki entry on that I followed, and yeah. So now if you don't want to use Calamares, if you don't want to use the Ncurses installer, you don't have to. You can install through SSH, boom, done.
That's pretty cool.
So, yeah,
I've
just
never
some
done that.
minor.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
so again, just some minor changes we made, and
so
that's
would you
what we're
then
all.
be able to do like a headless installation, like with a serial terminal then too?
Without a screen, yeah, maybe you could do that. Yeah,
Okay.
if you wanted to do a full-on server install, you could do that. But I don't know if it'll still copy over the XFCE stuff. It might, but yeah, if you wanted to do it on a server, go right ahead. So, but either way, so yeah, SSH is not an option. So.
That's cool.
Oh, and another thing, I noticed that in the Grub stuff, when you boot it up, I forgot to enable the Plymouth screen. So yeah, if you do install this on like a laptop or a desktop that's not a server, now you get a boot screen. So you no longer see the text output. Now you see a graphical bootloader screen.
You know,
So.
I'll be honest with you. I actually prefer the text flying by
Yeah, that's
over the
fine.
little
Well,
spinning
if you
thing.
want to re-enable that, you can just
Yeah.
edit it and switch that back if you want. But yeah, now by default it boots graphically versus a text mode. But yeah, I just figured that as a point of convenience. But yeah.
That's awesome.
Now another bit of point that I wanted to get to real quick is that there's going to be a second edition. Now, I know Ricky and I said it was going to be Gen 2, but Seeker and I have talked. That's not the case. We are going to be doing a Linux from scratch edition. So here's the caveat with this version, though, guys. It is not going to have a package manager. Now, here's the reason why. I've tested this idea a couple of times, and yes, a package manager can be done in LFS. However, I've tried adding like Pacman and Emerge, Portage, and a couple of others. The problem there is Seeker and I have tried to come up with some different scripts to automate this process. And here's what happens. It doesn't work how it's intended, or you end up with a hella out-of-date LFS, or three, stuff breaks and it just doesn't work. So, if we go about this, we are not going to add a package manager on the LFS. So, if people download this, just don't expect automatic dependency handling, and you'll have to do stuff. If you want to add things outside the distro, best go read the documentation, because myself, nor Seeker, nor any of the StormOS guys are going to provide much support for adding third-party applications. Because, yeah, this is not going to be this version of StormOS, the Storm Scratch version, whatever we end up calling it. It's just not going to resolve things automatically. And if you want to add a package manager, that's on you. So, I just, we can't really provide too much support for the LFS version, because honestly, it's already going to be a labor of love in itself. And we are going to add an installer on there from within the build thing. But honestly, it's just very hard to provide support for a distro that's independently made. It's just a real pain in the butt. So, yeah, that will be coming, but we just don't have an ETA on something like that, because, LFS is built as a build system, and it's going to be coming from this laptop that I'm talking to you guys on. And, I don't know how we're going to do the kernel, but we'll figure that out as we go. So, yeah, very technical stuff in building an LFS-based system. So, yeah, look forward to that, and I hope we get to show the both editions very soon.
Yeah. I'm sure that's incredibly educational.
It's going to be incredibly technical, Nate. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, that's fine. I like technical. I just have to have my language learning model there to help me understand what you're saying.
Because we want to stick with consistency, we will be adding XFCE to the LFS version as well. But we are not going to add KWin on top of it. We're not going to add any compiz, nothing like that, because we want to keep the list of dependencies down. So, but we will be adding stuff from this book called Gaming LFS, or GLFS, to have that covered. But we're going to add very, very minor programs on top of it. And no, we are not going to add Chromium to it, because Chromium is a bit involved on LFS. And honestly, that is just not going to happen. So we are going to add, I know I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for this, Firefox, because Firefox is just a simple untar. You add it in, that's it. That's all we're looking for with a browser. So I know a lot of people are probably shuddering when I say that, but look, adding something that's not Chromium based would add just, or sorry, not Firefox based, would add just too much way of dependencies and way of everything. So, it can be done, but maintaining Chromium on LFS is just so yeah, not gonna happen.
It's understandable.
Yes, now I know a lot of people are frowning and like giving me very derogatory comments, I'm sure, in the YouTube side of things. Yes, Eric, I know what you mean with that, but look, again, we're trying to keep this distro on the smaller size and etc. So, to put it simply, Firefox is the way we're going. That's how it is. So,
Yeah. And it was in the chat there, Steve's very own said, concentrate on one, Ben.
yeah, I get what you're saying, Steve, but look, you know, we're I'm a man who just enjoys, I
Torturing
guess,
yourself. Gotcha.
who makes himself very, it's a very long, drawn out conversation in that regard. So, to put it simply, I like pain.
So
Like I said, torturing yourself.
I think that's
In a
called
way, yes, Jason, I'm no stranger to that. So go
There
ahead.
you go.
I
Here's
think-
some cat pets. For
I
you.
think the term is self-flagellation. That's what you prefer to do.
That's the way we go about it around
yeah.
Storm
So maybe you should call it
OS, yes.
self-flagellation OS.
Or we could just call it Storm Scratch. Call it good enough.
Hey, got to scratch
I mean-
an itch. So there you go.
Scratch OS. Yeah. Scratch OS. We'll figure something out with the name. We could just call it Scratch OS. Yeah.
And then in chat also been Clash and Cruise says, no, that is all very legitimate reasoning you have provided for your decision. Don't feel bad.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely. You got to go. You got to go through, and you got to do these things. I mean, it's
Yeah,
scratching
Clash
itch.
is right. I mean, again, I'm not trying to make poor decisions for my users. So I'm not trying to make every nook and cranny of the Linux community happy. I'm just trying to provide a
sure
starting
wouldn't.
LMS environment. That's
You're
not.
never going to make everybody in this community happy. So
No,
don't
That's
even
what-
bother.
that's why we have
You know,
300
with
some odd
my-
distros
my
actively.
ISOs, right. Again,
Ben, you know
I'm
who
just
needs
give
to be
people
happy?
a starting foundation to have fun.
Eric needs to be happy.
No, Ben needs to be happy.
Yes,
You
and
need to
I'm
be
happiest,
happy with
you know,
what you're doing.
right,
Janda
and
needs to
I'm
be
happy doing these respins for people, giving them a starting point to really learn the system and have fun while doing it. And that's the point with my systems, is that,
Excellent.
and that's what I'm aiming to do with
Excuse me.
LFS and with Arch, is provide that thing. Now, that's what I'm going to continue to do. So,
So Ben, if you're able to read the YouTube chat, Steve, Sleepy Vince, he's just
yeah,
said that
Vince.
I ate
got
beans
it.
last night,
Oh God,
so I got a storm in my pants.
Jack OS. Oh, that's good, Steve.
TMI.
Oh God. Oh God.
All right,
Actually,
so
beans
on
today.
There you go, Vince. Bring it out the cannon fodder.
on that bombshell, uh,
He says.
time for the last call.
Oh God, help us.
So if you
And you know what? Oh, one more thing, Nate. I might actually consult the Telegram group with my LFS progress and
that'd be good.
ask them, about names and see where we come up with,
Yeah, it'd be good. That's what they're there for. Community is a good
Yeah.
thing.
Yes, because
As
I
long
mean,
as it's a good community.
again, this is not just about
Sure.
me and my fellow devs. This is about getting people's inclusions,
Yeah, I like that.
But anyway, it's
Everybody.
9:59. We'd better speed it along.
Certainly. So it is last call. So Eric, what exciting things are you working on this week?
I am learning more about Reaper as a digital audio workstation, and so my co-host Dale had some fan issues in his latest recording, and so I had to figure out how to clean those up. So I did that, and then just trying to be as efficient as possible with editing, because they tend to be long recording sessions. You know, I've got an hour and a half or more sometimes of footage to deal with, and so I actually found some really Reaper lets you do a lot of scripting. So they have a lot of inbuilt controls and capabilities, like little. It's almost like the Unix approach, like one little thing that does one specific function, like it, you know, cuts something or whatever. So you can chain those together and create just sort of a scripting thing, and people can share them. And so I've got a new script today that was able to go through and basically do silence removal. So anything that was longer than 3/4 of a second or a full second pause, it cut it down to a half a second, and was able to. It actually did a bunch of stuff. It normalized first, and then it went through and did the detection. And when it found the regions, then it cut them down, and it like did this whole thing basically with one button.
That's
Where
nice.
I had been doing it the hardest way possible previously. So, yeah, I'm having a lot of fun just kind of discovering, and I feel like I'm just barely scratching the surface of what's possible. And
That's Reaper.
so, yeah, Reaper. Yeah, exactly. And I bought it 4 years ago for $60, and they keep giving me updates. They have updates at least once a month, sometimes twice. They're constantly adding new capabilities, and somehow the software itself is only like, I want to say 35 or 40 megabytes, the whole system. Like it seems impossible, but for all the things it does, so it's one of the most amazing pieces of software. I put it right up there with like Blender. You know, it's not open source, but it's one of those like incredibly capable pieces of software that is really, you're only limited by how much knowledge you have in terms of how to use it. You know, so yeah, episode 54 Distro Hoppers Digest is being cooked right now, and it will be out probably in a week or two.
So it's in the
depending on
crock
when
pot, huh?
people- Yeah, it's stewing. So anyway, that's what I've got going on.
Nice. Well, fantastic. So Steve's very own, he's trolling in the chat. He's got a live show Sunday mornings at 8:30 a.m. Central. So that's 9:30 for those in
Oh,
the civilized.
Steve streams?
I think so.
I didn't realize he did.
I
Really?
streams
Oh.
at that time of the day. I'm streaming Z's.
But I'm not sure if he like does Linux anymore, or if it's even Windows, or if he's using
Nah.
like
Or what he's doing.
I think
Mac
he's
OS.
probably
video
There's-
toaster.
yeah. There's some kind of software he likes. I'm
know.
not sure what it is.
I don't remember what it is.
Yeah, I don't know.
Weird. Anyway, so check him out, 8:30, and make sure you troll him because he needs all the trolling. He's already irritated me in the chat, and it didn't take long. So, I mean, not really irritating me. He's doing it in a lovingly kind and lovingly don't punch him in the face kind of way.
You're being nice again, Nate. You're being too nice.
Well, Steve does have the
He said
least
it'll be
punchable
on,
face on the
mate. He got
internet.
his NVIDIA.
Wait, what is it you say? He has the least punchable
The
face?
least punchable face
Yep.
on all the internet. Yep. That means, Jason, yours is more punchable than Steve's.
Yeah.
Yep.
Linux User Space is on break, but they are doing some live fun segments on, I think it's Tuesdays or Wednesdays. When was it? Tuesday? Wednesday. They do they do little live things you can join in. They're streaming on Twitch, or you can join on their Discord. Anyway, so check that out. LinuxUserSpace.show. I'm on a podcast called Linux Out Loud. We just released an episode last week, and I have two co-hosts, Matt and Wendy. And I think Matt was actually decent that time. I think, maybe not. Also, a website called
He didn't like sucker you guys into things, and
He probably, I mean, he's an enabler for sure. He tried to push
Yeah.
some game, but after I was
That's the
watching the
word I
game
was
for a little
looking
bit,
for,
it was a little bit weird. After watching one of the videos, it was it was an indie game, and at first I'm like, oh, this is interesting, and then after the show we stopped recording, I was looking at it a little bit further, I'm like, oh, this gets a little weird. Now I know why Matt likes it. I won't say the reason here. Now. A website called cubiclenate.com. I do things. In fact, I'm almost done with I'm doing a little blathering on my last 20 years of Linux. I've been doing Linux now for 20 years. I should say it's actually just over 20, but because I started using it late last year, late 2003, but I was late last year, would have been 20 years, but I was full time, not dual booting as of this year, about middle of this year, so 20 years ago. I'm so confused now. My head is
I
warped.
think we all are confused now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just
We're
gonna
all
stop talking. Anyway,
Getting our heads
Was
into
it this year,
dozen
last
different
year,
eras.
next year, 20 years?
I'm looking at the end of the 20 years, the first 20 years. It's sometime this year when it was full time, no dual boot, no dual boot, no dual booting.
I can say I've never dual booted Linux. Always wanted on separate hardware.
It was with Windows XP. Good times. Anyway, Linux Saloon is part of the Tux Digital Network, so just check out more great shows at tuxdigital.com. I want to thank you all for your support, however you do it, being a part of the conversation, both the Zoom meeting, the YouTube stream, as well as for everyone watching the show after the fact.
All right.
I want to thank everyone involved in making Linux an open source tool as possible for us to not only have this conversation, but also to have fun and enjoy our technology. Linux truly puts personal back in your personal computers. Thank you for stopping by. Be sure to tip your developers, and please remember to Linux responsibly. Until next time.
Good night,
See ya.
everybody.
Toodles.